So I'm really happy to be here with you today. My name is Yuri Beckelman. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff for Congressman Mark Takano, who I've worked for about 4.5 years now. He is really like a thought leader on civic tech, so I'm really happy to work for him. He gives me a lot of freedom to try to track this stuff down, and I want to introduce my wonderful panel, who I all know very well because we've all worked on this stuff together. Carrie, first off, she currently serves as Deputy Digital Director for Senate Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democratic Caucus. Previously, she served as the Digital Director for House Leader Nancy Pelosi. She was a Senior Advisor on the Committee on Rules and the Communications Director for Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California. She hails from Rochester, New York, and holds an undergraduate degree from William & Mary and a graduate degree from George Washington University. I have personally worked with Carrie on programs like this to increase staff capacity for years, and she is definitely one of the most creative people on the Hill. So that's Carrie. Wilsar, sitting next to her, currently serves as the Digital Director for U.S. Representative Bonnie Watson-Coleman, leading digital strategy and digital messaging, video production, photography, and graphic design. She is Sierra Leonean American. Did I say that right? Yeah, perfect. And a transplant from the great state of New Jersey. She is also a real talent running one of the best social media accounts in the House. She has a lot of insight into how freshman offices who aren't stuck in their old ways look at technology. And at the end, we have Kathy Goldschmidt, who joined the Congressional Management Foundation in 1997 after working in the House of Representatives. And her focus has been on improving legislative capacity and the use of technology. She was the co-creator and lead researcher for the Congress Online project, through which CMF developed the Gold Mouse Awards for congressional websites and social media practices. I'm proud to point out that my office won a Golden Mouse for social media last time around.
For my office. Several times.
And her current project is Congress 3.0, which I've been working with her on. And the goal of this project is to try to answer the question, how can Congress transform itself to better meet the demands of the information age? And I'm excited to have Kathy on the panel because she sees what's going on beyond one office and onto the whole picture. So she's really a great insight into trends beyond just what's going on day to day in my personal office. So I thought I'd start with a quick opener. What digital tool has your office adopted in the last 2 years that makes things easier? Anyone want to take this? I think we'll just go down the line.
We love Snapstream.
Snapstream.
It's an excellent, excellent tool, particularly for caucuses because there's a whole caucus-wide login. A lot of offices, we have to understand that offices work as their own fiefdom within Congress, and for folks to come together for caucus-wide tools is really spectacular.
I have to say, since we do a lot of events in Ms. Watson-Coleman's office, I pitched the idea of getting a Mevo. So we do a live stream event all the time. And a Mevo is basically a live stream device that you can live stream on Facebook, Twitter, and a live stream website. So we use that in everything. And at first, they were resistant. Like, why do we need that? We have an iPad. Like, no. So, and we got it, and we've had it for about a couple of months now, and everything that we do, I use, and it looks wonderful. So I highly recommend it. They're not paying me, I promise.
And from my perspective, institutionally, some of the interesting things that I think are going on are using Facebook Live for town halls, especially right now, any tools or any sort of app that helps them do do their jobs better, which Kirsten Gullickson talked about the clerk's responsibility doing. So that's including making it easier to manage and process and extract information and knowledge from constituent communications. Using tools like the House has approved Basecamp, for example, and that is the only project management software that's actually, I think, approved by the House of Representatives or the Senate, but to do project management more efficiently and effectively, do staff management, do information and document management in a more centralized and organized way.
And if Yuri were answering that question for his own office, he would tell you that he's the only office on Capitol Hill that has a Yelp account. So you can review his boss and the tours that the staff gives to them, so then his SEO gets better.
We added one more. Lou Correa now has a page as well. Oh, wow. And it shows up really well. It's a positive story. I would say, actually, we use Slack. I'm pretty sure the House has not approved it yet. But we use it, and you'll find it more and more offices are using it. Kathy, going back to you. So I'm going to try not to dwell on the negatives, because I'm sure you have all heard this today, because there really is some creative stuff going on. But I think to paint the landscape, I'd like to get a little overview of, we hear staffers complaining about blockages in their workflow, either in the approval process or in the, or in the bloviated process itself. Can you offer examples, big picture, what are the real big things that people complain about that slow them down and keep them from being efficient? I know that's a big question.
It is a big question, and I will answer it as succinctly as I can. One of the things we found within individual offices is that, especially with constituent correspondence, which in a House office can take up to 50% of their time and resources to process, that's a big job. It's even bigger now. I think the constituent correspondence has increased in the last 6 months by, some offices say 9,000%. They couldn't process it all before. It's worse now. But the staff, the legislative staff will tell you that the problem is the approval process. It takes my boss too long to review and approve it. And also a lot of offices are still doing a lot of that on paper. Like track changes is not a thing in a lot of offices. But the chiefs and LDs will tell you it's the writing and the research. So there's that issue. And then more broadly, some of the problems that offices complain about, particularly I think freshman offices and newer offices who are used to a different way of doing things, House and Senate rules and House and Senate standards and the time it takes to approve new tools and new technologies. And I'm not going to go into them, but if anybody wants to talk to me about why some of that is, I can talk at length about it. But the part of the difficulty in innovating is rules that are meant to protect the legislative branch's autonomy and independence from the separation of powers, but also protect their deliberative processes. And there's also a bureaucracy there. I'm not going to say there isn't.
So next question is for Wilsar. You're in a newer office, and with a creative boss, it seems open to good ideas. What is it about your boss that allows you to take risks? Is it because she's new to Congress? She's a sophomore now. I said freshman earlier, but she's a sophomore now. This is her second term. Is she new to Congress? Is it that Congress has just fundamentally changed for new members? Or is it that she herself is creative?
I think it helps the fact that, so with regard to Facebook, she is 172 years old and fabulous. And she has been in office back in New Jersey for about almost 20 years. And she has an active Facebook account. She loves Facebook. So when it comes to doing things for Facebook, she is on board because she wants the people who were friends with her on her personal page to make sure they're active on her official page. And I think what helped makes my job a little easier is I have a very creative chief of staff. So my chief of staff, James, is very out there. He comes to the back office with all this really vast idea, and it's our job to, okay, let's bring it down. How can we take it apart and make it creative and make it legal? But yeah, so Bonnie is very creative because she wants people to connect with her all the time. So when I bring ideas to her, at first she's resistant, but then she trusts me. I worked with her for about 2 years, and we have a very young team, so she trusts that whatever we bring to her is something that will benefit her and her constituents. And she's also open to just doing fun things. She wants to go outside and videotape in front of the Capitol doing a protest. And she wants to go outside at night doing a protest. And she wants to sit in front of her office and talk about why Trump is horrible. And she wants to go on Facebook, on Instagram and talk about and show her granddaughter. And she wants to do a town hall. So those are things that we bring to her, and she's like, okay, let's talk about it. I'll trust that you mean well, so let's go forth and do it. So it kind of helps a lot that she's open to, she's digital. She has an iPhone 7, and she texts like this, but it's okay. And I taught her how to take a selfie the right way. And she was very open to things like that.
Can you explain the right way?
So she tends to do the whole under the chin thing. I'm like, ma'am, let's just do this. So we took a selfie for Twitter. Her first tweet was with me, and she drafted it, and then now she'll tweet, but then she'll at the wrong people. So We're still learning.
Steps. Baby steps.
Baby steps. But she's wonderful, and it's easy to work with her because she just knows that her staff always has her in mind and her best, intentions. So I love working for her.
I will say we gave Congressman Takano the same lesson on up here, so it's pretty common. So, Kathy, I thought maybe you could offer a little more insight in that. Have you noticed much difference between how a newer office versus an older office operates? Does it have to do with how long they've been here? Does it have to be anything to do with their age, their region, their politics?
Not politics, age, and it's not necessarily members. So remember that most of Congress has been elected in the last 10 years. So there aren't that many that have been around forever. But there are a lot of chiefs, some LDs who have been around for a while and are used to doing things the way they're used to doing them. And that said, there are vast differences, especially with the last couple of classes of new members, particularly in the House, who want to do, who are pushing the envelope, pushing the bounds of the rules and the bureaucracy, and who want to be more innovative and use tools that they're used to using in the state legislatures they came from and the companies that they came from and the world that they came from outside of Congress, where things are, supported by technologies and that they can't use anymore when they get elected. But Congress is still kind of a paper-bound institution, both by rule. The official document is the paper, but also by tradition and what the senior managers in Congress are used to doing.
I think that's a really good insight. People talk about the bureaucracy of Congress, but there's a lot of room to innovate as long as management encourages it and has a view where they want to get to yes. And oftentimes that is not just, I want to get to yes, I also want to get to legal, but let's actually figure out how to do that. And so if you have that in place, you can do a lot of good stuff. So Carrie, you and I have for years been frustrated with the current state of training on the Hill, and that's digital training, tech training, management training, and we've created a couple of our own projects to help staff. I'd like you to talk about what you think is wrong with how training is currently on the Hill, and if there's ways to improve it.
So there are some things that are, quote unquote, wrong about things, but there's also some environmental factors that I think are really important to talk about first, which is the turnover on the Hill is rapid. It is insane. People will come for 9 months and think that's a great tour of duty and leave. And so you've just spent 9 months training this person, and just as they're getting comfortable, they leave. And think about the time and the money and the opportunity cost for finding new people, and let alone training them when they get there, but even finding them to begin with. So if you can imagine this sort of management training environment of a constantly churning ocean, it's pretty stressful, honestly. And so I think there are some efforts right now going on from the caucus level, but it tends to be pretty stale and only best practices and only panels with 250 people in a room, which honestly isn't really that helpful. And so Travis and Yuri, several years ago, decided, probably in a dark room somewhere, smoke-filled, to do it themselves because they were just tired of waiting for somebody else to do it. And then Travis moved on and I fulfilled that role. So we started something called the Digital Academy, which Wilsar is also a graduate of, where we take about 25, it's usually a press secretary or a digital staffer or maybe a legislative correspondent who is sort of digitally inclined, and we do small, hands-on, step-by-step classes with Facebook about how to make a Facebook ad, how to optimize a graphic, a little bit of graphic design that I teach, so photography, videography. We go to Google, talk about Google Ads, YouTube Live, with this is the button you push. Let's do it again, right? Because that's the level that we're talking about here. A good reminder is that a lot of people who are coming on the Hill, they were political science majors, right? They did not major in digital communications. They don't have videography backgrounds. They come in as op-ed writers who now have to run Twitter accounts, and they don't know how to do it. And so we sort of filled that void ourselves. and we're making the best of it.
I would also like to say people don't come in with degrees in management.
This is also true.
I think it's a big problem.
Absolutely.
So Wilsar, could you have
That's why we
anything to
exist.
add on to that?
This is on. So I agree with everything Carrie just said. I've been to those workshops, or those trainings down for the caucus, and it's a room full of a bunch of staffers trying to learn something. And the DA, the Digital Academy, was actually, this is the plug, quite helpful because it allowed me, removed me from the Hill, which is something I didn't think was necessary, but it was wonderful because it removed you from the Hill, and then you went to these HQs and you get to learn the tools the right way. And in my office, my role didn't exist. Some offices on the Hill don't believe that it's a significant role to have someone who's solely digital because of how old-fashioned some of us, the offices are. And I think that when I did a DA, I got more confidence in pitching my chief, hey, this is something we need to do. I'm going to take the initiative and bootstrap this entire thing. And from 2 years, and now I've been doing 2 years, I had the title, but also something else, because that's how the Hill works. And I finally just wrote a proposal. This is why I need to do this solely. And for some people, it's like, oh, it's a waste of time. It's just fun work. I love my job. I had the best job in my office. I think so, at least. But it does take time. Just because something looked like it's easy doesn't mean that you can't do it quickly, right? So the DA did help me push that. My chief was also open to me going to it. Your office management have to be open to you attending these events that would enable you to be a better staffer in digital space. So things like that really help. And those workshops are nice on the Hill, but they're not really helpful to me. And being removed from it and being trained specifically in that role was way more significant than me staying on the Hill in the cold room.
It's also a budgetary problem. A lot of offices, they think that the digital director is the cherry on top. It's not really the necessary person, but you got to have a legislative director, right? And that's sort of a more historically respected role, is a legislative staffer versus a communications or a digital staffer. And I've always wanted to sort of lift the veil between the two and make sure, I think Yuri is particularly good at this, coming as a legislative director, to make sure that ideas come from both silos and that there isn't a silo to begin with and all these things. But I think a lot of offices are still thinking that a high-level senior staff, well-trained, senior staffer in digital is still a luxury and not a necessity.
I want to go back to the budget thing. There's also this issue of unwillingness to invest in training. And so we have a lot of people who come to Congress and want to sell us on their idea, and we'll spend time with a staffer to explain to them their point of view on an issue. Basically, they're lobbying. And staffers don't want to get sucked into that if they don't have to for their own time. Same thing happens with training. They don't think it's actually useful. And very few offices will actually spend the money to do professional training for members of their staff. Once again, largely because a lot of people don't stick around. I've been on the Hill for 10 years, though. And we spend money to train our staff. We spend $1,000 to send someone for a week to get on graphics training. We do some management training. We do retreats with the Congressional Management Foundation once a year. Not every office does that. And so I think this is a good perspective of what Congress could use is the actual hands-on training opportunities without a hook, without a catch, which is what everyone's worried about and why they don't participate. So we've been a bit down on Congress and their ability to be efficient, but there really is some creative and great stuff happening. So I thought maybe we could just go down the little line. We'll start with Kathy, maybe. I'd like you to all talk about a creative project you're either working on or have participated in recently that is making Congress a more effective place.
Well, Yuri mentioned my bio and been working on this stuff for 2 decades now. Most recently is the Congress 3.0 project, and the purpose of it is to begin to envision the transformation that Congress is going to need to make to better respond to information age members and staff and citizens. Well, it turns out that this first level of the project, innovation means helping give them the capacity, the tools they need to have the capacity to do the communications they need and to solicit the information they need from citizens so that they can free up staff to be able to do the legislative and policy work and the other part of their job. It's not just about constituents. It's very much about constituents. It's the people's house, the House and Senate, the legislature. But so the Congress 3.0 project, what we're working on right now wouldn't be considered by any of us as innovative because we are working on trying to help them use their correspondence management systems more effectively. They don't get training in how to to use these tools that they have. The tools are different than tools that are available in the private sector too, and in some respects, a little clunkier. And staff get trained on them, and then they leave, and then the next thing, the constant problem. So it's working on that and helping them manage correspondence. It's working on doing better telephone town halls so that they are actually substantive communications, not flacking opportunities with constituents, especially in the environment, post Gabby Gifford and the current scariness that's going on. They're afraid to get up in front of people right now. So those are the innovative things, creative things that we're working on right now.
For me, today actually, we're working on this. I was working on this project for my boss, when some black girls in a high school in Massachusetts were pulled apart because of the braids they were wearing. So I collaborated with a CBC woman, and we're sending them a letter, digital, and a photo collage of these members with their diverse in hair. See, like, their hair does not define you. And I also am working on, so we have this thing in the office called You Ask, I Answer. Just speaking of correspondence, I used to be the LC, so we get so many incoming mail that we can't always respond quick enough because things are happening every single hour. So what I did was I asked Bonnie to get in front of a camera, and we answer their question. How do you someone about the GMO bill? We will respond via video, and that goes out quickly than just having to write a letter, have it approved, come back, edit it, have it approved again. So to stop the process there. And lastly, I was just in Seattle. So my boss is the co-chair of the Congressional Caucus on Black Women and Girls, and I was in Seattle to speak with Amazon and Microsoft and some tech companies about the lack of diversity in tech, especially with regard to women and especially with regard to Black women, and actually pitched Tech Congress because they were saying that there's nothing out there that's really working with Congress, any tech companies or any tech programs working with Congress. I'm like, well, there is something, and so things like that, and there are more things in the pipeline. Lastly, my office likes to collaborate with other members of Congress. So we did a video for Marsha Fudge's mom's birthday, and it was a really fun video, and all I had to do was set up a room, have a white background, have these members who are just amazing come into the office, come into the studio, and record a special message, and it was a collage. And we've done that 3 times now for different types of issues, some light, some not. So there's always something in the pipeline, and I say I have a office that is very creative, that's open to different ideas. So I'm quite lucky. And I shouldn't have to be lucky. It should be just the norm on the Hill.
I just wanted to jump in real quickly. There's this, we've had this discussion about the mail, and the line I always remember is just, the mail never stops. But the discussion here with mail and social media is about quality of contact versus effort, right? And so we're constantly having this discussion of, well, is it numbers or is it the actual information inside of it? And if it's about the information inside of it, is it worth it to try to get real high quality content if we can't get people to actually do it? Same thing for us, right? We get all sorts of mail, and we want to write you that long personalized letter that answers every single question you have in there. It's really deep, but we can't do that when we're getting thousands of pieces of mail a month. And so is it more important for us to get you a timely response, or is it more important for us to get you a real high quality response? It's a never-ending thing we're struggling with, and we're trying to find a good balance on. I think that we all agree that the kind of quick route there is not going to work. More real low-quality content does not going to change a members of Congress's opinion. And we, as Congress, have to do a better job of streamlining how we get back to you so that you feel like your opinion is being heard. I know one of the things that we do is we try to break the mold a little bit for really personal emails that come in. We literally just give the congressman an evening to make some phone calls, and he just cold calls them. And it's things that would take us a long time to do to try to write and answer because they're telling us about a very personal story, and we don't want to give them a form letter. But they feel, even when they don't agree with us, that they really appreciate that the congressman has taken the time to just sit and call them. Yeah. Carrie, you want to?
Something fun we're working on that I'm hoping will bring some sunlight into the process. So when Senator Schumer became Leader Schumer, we inherited what's called the Senate Democratic Media Center, which is the team that I manage for the Democratic Caucus. So we've got a TV studio and a radio studio and photographers, videographers that work for the leader, but also for the caucus as a whole and for individual offices. That's my team. And we are producing Bernie's podcast. We're producing Bernie's TV show. That's us. And it's really fun. And so we're talking about, Bob Menendez does not need a podcast. Chuck does not need a podcast. But he wants one. So what do we do? We're figuring that out. Yeah. I'm sorry for whatever comes out of that team. I'm going to make it as good as possible. But, that's something that which I know dovetails into your next question about what's different on the Senate side than the House side, is that because we have this resource, we have a bigger budget and a bigger team, and we have a broadcast engineer who actually knows what all the buttons do, things like that, that on the House side we just don't have the capacity to do. And that is making our team set our bar a little bit higher.
Yeah. So I think we're getting ready for questions soon, so I only have one or two more questions. I actually want to bounce around a little bit. I've noticed this, and I'd like the audience to kind of understand, so maybe the two of you could speak about it, and maybe Kathy, you can add some as well. Can you talk about engagement since the election? Has there been a change? The answer there is yes, but quick reveal. But is it just activity level, or is it how people are messaging, or is it the technology they're using?
Okay, so Gorsuch vote, we do a Facebook Live right off the floor. Senators can come in, and when there's nobody there, we have a switcher and can go to the floor. It's great. Facebook Live can also be C-SPAN. And Dick Blumenthal from Connecticut standing there, and he's telling this really great story about how when he was a clerk in Supreme Court, and I'm tracking all the comments and the questions, and a woman says, "Oh, Mr. Blumenthal, thank you so much. You helped me get my veterans benefits. I don't really agree with you all the time, but I'm so proud that you're my representative. Thank you so much." And I screenshotted it to make sure I could show him afterwards, and the next comment was, "I hope you choke on a fish sandwich," which I just thought was really great. Like, he doesn't want him to die. He just wants him to be really uncomfortable for like 30 seconds. But like, that's the tenor. That's what we get, is we get these really heartfelt, beautiful, comprehensive things, and then we get just abuse. And that's not even the mean stuff, right? That's just like the stuff I can say in public on camera. And the temperature has gone up noticeably, and the traffic is insane. And working for Leader Schumer, I think we actually are a little bit less aggressive than when we were last Congress, because we just have to be so careful. Because any knee-jerk reaction, any tweet that goes out, particularly if the president likes to bait my boss a lot, and so we have a lot of debates about whether or not to take the bait. And it's just the high wire got a little bit higher this Congress.
For me, in a personal office, I can't imagine having all that come at you at once, because for having us a one boss. So we have a legitimate troll. We have a dedicated troll that, for some reason, whenever we post anything on Twitter, this man just finds a way to comment about something just ridiculous. Oh, I hope you die. Or, things.
Could it be a bot?
I think it has to be about, there's no way that you're just that precise every time a post goes out. 10 seconds later, there goes this guy with his comment. I'm like, what are you doing?
His favorite hobby.
For real, I mean, thank you for the engagement. I will just hide you, but like, I'm keeping your comment there because I need it. Self-abuse. So hiding things on Facebook is great because it's still there. But for us, Twitter has been really, really intense because we were freshmen last year and we didn't get a lot of engagement because no one knew who she was. And for some reason, I wonder why, Twitter has been really active for us. So with what Carrie said, we will get tweets, people asking her, can you please support this? So now the new way of corresponding now has been social media. And so I'm always working, always. Having social media because people are tweeting questions and doing the response right away because now they're publicly shaming you to answer their questions. And people are asking you questions on Facebook or they'll DM you, which is strange. So don't DM people members on Instagram, it's weird. So people are asking questions online a lot, and for us, I'm tracking the numbers, and it's hard to keep up, and I'm showing this to Bonnie because she wants at least our team, and to see what the numbers are, and like, okay, so how do we respond to this? So the way we correspond with the constituents now has changed. Now we respond really fast online, someone leave a comment, and there are times someone leave a comment as a troll, and I'm like, say, look, I want to curse you out as my boss, but they'll respond different ways. So whenever a troll respond, say something to hype us up, we just like, either will not like their comments, like everyone else's comments, because we're that petty, or we'll just like say thank you for your comment and move on. But on Twitter, it's been ridiculous because now everyone has something to say, and if you're verified and you tweet my boss, it's, everyone gets to see that, and it's a different way of engagement. So we try to be more responsive. Whenever we post something, there's always someone saying good things. There's always someone saying something that should not be said publicly online.
Well, just to give you an overview from our office, we've seen when generally you have a dip in interaction online after elections. And from December to about March, we had the same tenor we've always had on Twitter, and we went from 13,000 followers to 36,000 followers in the course of 3 months. It was not something we expected. We didn't pull any stunts. We didn't figure out a new algorithm. It just kind of happened. And you've seen some real breakout stars in the last few months. I am so happy to see Maxine Waters get her due online.
Maxine Waters.
Auntie Maxine, as she's known by the millennials online, she likes to say it.
I've always loved her. I'm glad she's having a moment.
So I think we're going to do some Q&A right now. But I wanted to kind of frame it a little bit with most of these people in the audience are probably not Hill staffers, but they are interested in making Congress more effective. And I'd like you all to think about how they can help make Congress a more efficient place. So if we have any questions in the audience.
We have a question here.
Hi, Alan Fuller, Flat Creek, former Hill staffer. Spent a lot of time writing those letters back. But question, you were talking about the comments and the feedback. You see that immediately. It's part of the stream. How do you begin to ingest the volume of comments, to authenticate it, and then to look at how representative those comments are? Because a lot of discussion has been about opening up Congress, making Congress more responsive, building that two-way communication. But with all of the industry interest, with all of the advocacy groups out there, any new technique or technology somebody comes up with to open up Congress, groups out there are going to game it to push their agenda. How do you begin to push past that to look at what's the authentic view of the American people?
I think I might want to jump in just really quickly. As the staffer up here who manages a mail program and spends a lot of time thinking about quality, frankly, people lie to us in their mail campaigns. I've received anti-net neutrality letters that when I called them to ask them if they'd written it, they thought they had written the exact opposite. And somehow I got 4,000 anti-net neutrality letters, and I looked into it a little more and found it was not the case. A lot of different groups won't send us contact information, and those people are not contacts. If I don't have their home address, and preferably their email address to reply, that is not a real contact. We spend a lot of time thinking about the quality of contacts. I will also tell you that most offices keep an internal total of everything that is shared every Friday. Most offices do that, and they answer their mail. A turnaround time can be 2 to 3 weeks. There are worst practices in plenty of offices. There are offices that don't answer their mail, which I don't know who it is, so don't ask me. But so we spend a lot of time, and then social media, which my colleagues can talk about, is a little more complicated. There is an answer there, frankly, and Congress hasn't used it yet. The closest I think we ever got was a program called Attentively. Attentively allowed us to upload our email addresses that we purchased from vendors, and it matched them up as constituents. It matched them up to all of their social media profiles, and we could track what people were saying to us on social media. So the technology is there. It just has not been implemented in a precise way yet. And there's a balance of what people collect, right? Tumblr doesn't collect addresses, so I have no idea who the people on Tumblr. We have 32,000 followers on Tumblr. We're a big,
Great
we're a
Tumblr
big
account.
place there. It's called There Will Be Charts if you want to see it. But we don't know who the people were interacting with it, except for very rare circumstances. But I think Facebook and Twitter could do a better job of identifying people as our constituents so that we could have better conversations with them. But Attentively was great. It didn't quite work out for us, but I remember one day we just looked up the hashtag SOTU, and anyone in our district that was talking about it, we would engage in a conversation with them. But we don't use it anymore. I wish we could figure out a way to get it back and run it.
And from my institutional perspective, and back to Yuri's question about what we all could do to help Congress the most, I think this is it. That figuring out how to authenticate, to understand, to collect, to aggregate the information from constituents to make it much more not just manageable, not just receiving and responding, but digestible.
And then you got to make that UI
trustworthy.
real easy. You got to make the UI real easy.
Right, because the turnover is 3 months, right, for an LC. And like this is the crux of the issue and the relationship between members of Congress and the people they represent. And I know a lot of tech companies have been working on ways to deliver messages more effectively and to enable citizens to communicate more and more and more often with their representatives. But the state of Wyoming is the least populous district in the country right now. It's 600,000 people. They are representing at least 700,000 and the population of New York. And they don't have the staff to do that. So in the House office, the staff is capped at 18 people. That's in the district and in DC, and they can't afford to pay 18 people. And so they have 6 in their Washington office and another 6 in the district office. And those are the people who are managing these communications. I have been obsessing about what the analogy Alex Coots made earlier about Coca-Cola and why Coca-Cola has managed to modernize its customer service. Why can't Congress? That's why they don't have the people to do it. They don't have the money. Coca-Cola can increase its profits. It can market itself. It can change its management systems. Congress can't.
Yeah, and so to add to that, when it comes to staff size, in my office, we have a communications team. That's a communications director, and there's me. In most offices, you have one staffer doing releases, digital, social, video, film, everything, right? So it's always like you don't have enough people to respond quickly. So find a way to help us help you.
Yeah, but I just wanted to, the last thing, the takeaway I think you should get from this is that on both sides, whether it's people trying to contact us or us contacting them, low effort has low impact. And so we see what's coming in, we understand where it's coming in, we understand how much effort someone put into it. And so if we get 1,000 people screaming the same 10 words at us, it doesn't count as much as one really well thought out letter or one person that found the congressman in the district and brought up a really smart issue with them. That is medium effort, super high impact. And so all these tech companies can tell you that they're going to change the game. It's not that simple.
Quick question, quick answers to wrap up.
Yeah, quick question. A lot of these civic engagement platforms, to your point, don't deliver enough information. Some dirty little secret, change.org doesn't actually deliver their petitions. Should we have a certification process for these advocacy organizations? CMF has done great work that certify that they're actually delivering their messages.
Yes.
What she said.
The problem is who's going to manage that, because we're not. We've thought about this a lot. But yeah, managing something that is core to democracy, and it's a tricky thing. And I don't think Congress is going to, the House or the Senate independently would have to do something like that. And they also, the bureaucracies are not going to do it. And so I think it has to come from us all in this room to, do what other industries have done and self-police and use best practices that are about democracy, not necessarily only about politics and winning and, getting a bonus from delivering the most messages to Capitol Hill, in your organization or whatever, or collecting email addresses so that you can communicate with these people for your own purposes. We need to, I think as an industry, need to think about the democratic underpinnings of these tools.
Please thank our panel and the moderator for a great